Hey guys, real quick before we start our show, if you have not taken time to rate our show on podcast or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please, we would love if you would take time to do that. And the reason is it puts us in the algorithm that we will start showing up on other people's searches for podcasts.
Yep.
And if you have not taken the time to share one of our episodes or just a link to our show with your friends and family, we would love if you would do that because, again, spits us out in the algorithm. So that's all. Hey everyone, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I am Rachel.
And I'm Melissa, and we are sisters. And hi, everyone.
And we're back again.
This time.
We are still here. So, we are going to be talking today. A two-parter is what we're going to be doing today.
All right.
So we are talking about learning to control our tongue and like our words matter. So today
Who
and
loves this topic?
Who does?
I'm thinking everyone who's hearing this, I can feel a few people being like, oh,
this is what we're talking about.
so this. Don't turn
today,
if that was your thought, you turn us up louder.
That's right. If that was your thought, it's time to tune in. So our words matter. That's the first part that we're doing. And next time we will talk about learning to control our tongue. So Melissa, do you have anything you want to share about this before we hit some of our main points in scripture?
No, I think that it is a very good topic because controlling our tongue is not always easy. And so, let's get into it. I'm excited to see where this goes.
All right. So our first point is how we speak to people matters, both in front of them and behind them. I know. I'm sure this is not a shocker to anyone. If it is, Lord have mercy, you need to listen.
But I think that if everyone is hearing this and being like, obviously the way we talk to people matters, I think then you need to look at it another layer and be like, do you actually pay attention to how you talk to other people? Because that's where I've been in my life, is that I obviously I know we have a lot to say about this, but before we get into it, I'm like, if you had said this to me 15 years ago, I'd have been like, well, obviously, but that doesn't mean I was actually aware of how I talked to people. So
and living it out.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So how we speak to people matters. So I, back in like college, I was videoing everything. I had a video camera. I took it everywhere. My friends would grab it and we'd video everything. And
like she didn't have a phone, guys. She had a video camera.
So we had to pay for the tape, put them in, plug it into your TV and watch it. So, and I noticed how when I wasn't filming, or even when I was filming, but I was like talking while filming, how I spoke to people did not match what I heard in my head. Yes. And that was horrifying.
Yes.
So I just stopped talking while the camera was on.
I'll just say that for off camera.
Okay. No, I'm not exactly joking. I mean, I was like 20, right? So then I became a mom and I started filming everything and I would listen and I was like, oh my gosh, I still do it. Surprise, surprise. Nothing had changed.
Doing it off camera didn't automatically change your voice.
really didn't. And I think, as a mom, sometimes with like, I think we maybe talked about this once, like our windows open, you pay attention more to like how you talk to your kids.
What neighbor can hear me right now?
Yeah. Or certainly like or certainly in a store, like we do change the way we matter. So we speak. So it's like, we do know this and we do practice it, but I think circumstantially, most of us practice it circumstantially in church or like at a party or whatever. But then
in front
like
of certain people.
Right. But then we close our doors and our windows and it's like, but then what? Like
Melissa unplugged.
Exactly. And so this is something we have both worked very hard at, and I am far from where I want to be. But oh my gosh, I am like totally different than where I used to be. And I can't believe how much it affects. I mean, I can. It seems obvious, but I can't believe how much it affects relationships. Not even just conflict. It affects that too, but just relationships. Like when I'm harsh with my 9th grader, it affects him mentally. I can see it. And I had another son. I'm sure all my kids are probably like that, but I have 2 kids specifically that I remember. Specifically. And it's like, I could just see how much I would deflate them. And then I have other kids where I do talk to them differently because I know they're more sensitive. And so it's like, I hold back more because I like catering to them, but then like, why am I not doing that to everyone, or all
Well,
my kids?
and it's because some of our kids are easier to talk gentler to because they are gentler in their own
True.
the way. And I'm not saying that gives us an excuse, but
Right.
it doesn't take the same effort to talk gentle
Right.
and sweetly and softly, even in reprimand to a
Right.
child who is gentle versus the one who
Mhm.
comes back at you and they get in your
True.
face and that's much harder.
You're right. I feel much better about myself right now. So the way we speak to people matters. Ephesians 4:29. I'm sure many of us know this verse. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta be honest with you guys, like this is a really hard one for me. Not in theory. In theory, I'm like, yes, I absolutely
Mm-hmm.
believe this. But there are times when I'm really frustrated with someone or they've hurt me and I'm sharing my hurt. And I know that what I'm saying and how I'm saying it is not necessarily to the benefit of the person
Right.
I'm mentioning and even the person listening. And I'm literally talking about myself in the present. This is something
Yeah.
I really struggle with. Like,
Yeah.
how do I say how much I'm struggling with a person without like
Demeaning
making
them or
yeah. And so I don't have
So
that one
I
down.
will say that I do believe that there are times where we have a person in our life that we can go to and say, if we know that this person we're talking to is not going to just let us run down this whole rabbit hole of
Mhm.
angry and talking negatively and ripping them apart, but sometimes we have to. I mean, because if we deny what we're actually feeling,
Right.
that isn't beneficial either.
Well, and I
Because it feels there. And,
I used to be somebody who completely denied like how I was feeling
right.
and it would come out sideways. And so this is
Exactly.
a really tricky thing
Yeah.
for me.
So I believe that it is 100% okay. I mean, I don't know that this says this in the Bible anywhere, but if our goal is to be more like Jesus in this conversation, if our goal is to be okay with being told the way that you're thinking about them is not okay, it's not. I think it's
Mhm.
okay to have someone that we go to and we do unleash a little bit. Like I need to just say everything I'm feeling,
Yeah.
and then knowing that they will help us wrap
Sort
that
it
stuff
out.
back up and start
Mhm.
sorting it out and find a
Mhm.
cleaner spot in our heart for them. I don't really know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm trying to say there, but
No,
you know what
I
I mean?
like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Find a cleaner spot in our heart for them
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
what happens is when we're frustrated or hurting by somebody or, we feel rejected or whatever, our flesh is like,
On
what's
fire.
on fire? I was like, what is the word? It's raging.
Mhm.
It's, inflamed.
Mhm.
And we don't want to stay there, hopefully.
Mhm.
I mean, I never
Yeah.
want to stay there. It's literally the worst feeling ever.
Right.
And so it's like, I need somebody to tell me, like, okay, what's valid, what's not valid, what's
Mhm.
like Jesus and
Mhm.
what's not like Jesus. And yeah, and so, but it's
So it means you
tricky.
have to be able to be very honest about where you are in that moment. Now,
Right.
sometimes we might not like, sometimes we can pause and spend that time with God and be angry and frustrated and all the ugly, and maybe that will calm us down enough before we go to someone.
Right.
But there are certain situations where even we need a tangible voice. We need a physical
Right.
being in
Mhm.
front of us to be able to be the vessel for God, so to speak, so he can talk through them to
Right.
us.
Mhm.
And I just think I really, because I've been in that place, and
Mhm.
I've something I prayed about. I have the I have two people in my life that I really do that with, and obviously Rachel, you're one of them, and we've talked it through, and we've talked about, is this
Mhm.
representing Christ in a godly way? Are we and it always ends better for me when I
Mhm.
do that. So
Yeah.
I have to believe that it's
Same.
okay. Mm,
Same. I always feel like I'm on the path towards Jesus when I
yeah,
have. So I guess it's all about the intention. It's like, what is our
yeah,
intention? Is our intention just to unleash and have
yeah,
feel like venting, or
yeah.
is it to have somebody really walk us through where are we in the wrong?
Reconciliation
Where
of
do we
some
need?
sort. Yeah.
What did you say?
To help them walk us through to reconciliation of some sort, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So I love that verse. I do struggle, but anyways, yeah, all the
Hmm.
things we just said. So
Hmm.
Psalm 19:14, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and redeemer. This
Hmm.
is huge. So this says the things that we say about people in our mind is
Hmm.
just as important as the things we say out loud. Now, the things we say out loud hurt the other person, can hurt the other person immediately, but the things that we say
Right.
in our hearts hurts them whether we realize it or not, and it hurts us. And I
Yeah, and hurts us. Yeah.
when I'm ruminating on negative things about
Hmm.
somebody, they definitely feel it.
Hmm.
Like I feel
Yeah.
it, they feel it. It's
Well, one of the verses I love that our mom has said to us for years as we were growing up, and I just love it, and is basically the wellspring of our heart is what comes out of our mouth. So whatever is happening
Mm-hmm.
inside us is what's going to come out of our mouth. So
Right.
even if we think we can keep all the ugly thoughts inside and say nicer things outside, if we keep letting the ugly
Right.
circulate, it is going to come out. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's like how we were created. And so
Right. So if we struggle with what we're saying to people, it's super important that we start focusing on what are we saying to ourselves inside.
yeah,
But
about them and yeah.
even if we don't say things outwardly, but we're having this struggle inwardly,
Mhm.
that's not pleasing to God. Like
Mhm.
both need to be dealt with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Our second point is okay, let me preface this. You know, the feeling or the thought that like calories on vacation are free, like they don't count.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
what happens on vacation
everything's
stays on
calorie free
vacation.
on vacation. Yeah.
Exactly. This is like that. This is what we say, and our anger is not excusable. It's not like well, as long as I'm angry, these are free things I can say because I
Mhm.
can always just come back and apologize for them later. And that is
Mhm.
just not true.
No.
It
And
is
can do a lot
so,
of damage with that mindset.
yes. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And so if there is any part of us that is thinking, well, it's just because I was angry, I wouldn't have said that otherwise. We should
Mhm.
not be saying it if we
Yes.
would not say it outside of our
Yes.
anger. And I
Yes.
definitely got a hold of this issue in me in my mid to late 20s. I've been
Mhm.
married like 5 to 7 years, and I don't even know what happened. I just know a change was made. And I was like, if I would not say it outside of anger, it will not be said in my anger.
Mhm.
And I truly live by that. And I don't say things that then later I'm like, oh, I have to apologize for that again. Like I did something recently that I should not have done. And it wasn't something I said, it was something I shared on social media. And now I'm living with the humiliation and the embarrassment that a few people saw it before I deleted it.
Dang it, I don't know what this is.
And one of them, rightfully so, questioned me and was like, "Hey, what is happening?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Man, I am so glad I don't live like this regularly because that is embarrassing. Like it
Mhm.
is embarrassing." And so, and it wasn't in my anger, it was in my hurt and in my, sadness that I was
Sure.
experiencing in the moment. And I just was like, it was so unnecessary. It was just really unnecessary.
Yes.
And so if that's how we're living, it's hurting us, it's hurting those people around us, it's embarrassing. Like it's
Well,
something to work on for sure.
it is because so I have had the opposite side of it. I have had a relationship that has spoken to me out of anger,
Mhm.
and then later
It's not
apologized.
me.
And
Just so excited to say it wasn't me.
and the thing is
It's
that
like,
those words, then I was left. So the person could come back and be like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that. And I knew they didn't mean it because of what they would say. I'd be like, there's no way they actually think this or
right.
believe it. But now I am left with them to have to process through,
Mhm.
do I take them on? Do I believe them?
Right.
Is there truth in it? Even though
Mhm.
they were angry, even though
I
they're
call it mental
apologizing.
gymnastics.
And it's exhausting. And
Right.
then they get to just come and say, I'm sorry and walk away. And so it is extremely damaging to the person that
Mhm.
you leave with that. Cause it's not just as
Right.
simple as I spoke, I was angry, I'm apologizing, and we're done. Because
No.
because especially if the same kind of things are spoken more than once, you know what I mean? Like it's like then it starts to feel like repetition in your mind and you start thinking,
Right.
okay,
Mhm.
every time
Well,
you
they
get mad
keep
at me, you say these
saying
things.
it.
So are they what's real and
Right.
what's not? It's very
Right.
confusing.
Right.
Um, so
For
even if you
sure.
don't feel like it like bothers you that much, like if you're listening to this
Mhm.
and you're like, well, I mean, I do that, but I apologize and it's fine. You need to look at it from if it's your kids, if it's your spouse, if it's your mom, your dad, if it's I mean, usually we don't talk to people like friends and bosses and
Mhm.
coworkers like that. If you do, you probably don't have a job, but if
Or
you
maybe you are
hear,
the boss.
yeah, right. It's usually our kids and our spouses that that as
Yeah.
adults that we talk like that too. And it is, you need to think through, how much do I love them? Do I love them
Mhm.
enough to leave them with my baggage that I'm putting on them every
Mhm.
time I get angry? Even though it's kind of easy for me to just apologize and you might feel guilty,
Mhm.
you apologize, you walk away, but kids, they don't know how to process through that. They don't know how to take that. To them, whatever you say is truth. And
Mhm.
so it's very important that if this is something you've struggled with, you need to not only say I'm sorry, but like kind of lament to them. Be like,
Mhm.
when I
This is
said
not
this
okay.
thing to you, this was so not about you. This is about me
Mhm.
and what I'm dealing with. And I am so sorry. And I'm going to start praying about this and I'm
Right.
working. Like, if you need to go to therapy for it, because if it's a big deal, like
Mhm.
do it immediately
Right.
because
Yeah.
anger destroys relationships very quickly. And so,
Right. No, totally. Well, and James 127 says, or 126 says, if anyone thinks he's religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless.
mm-hmm.
It's like, what is our faith if we are just have no control over our tongue? And
Yeah.
like you said, it's all about love. Do we love this person enough to work through this? And we have to take care of the people around us, and we are very responsible for how we speak to them.
Yes.
And I love in Proverbs, it says, whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit more than he who takes a city. So like, a mighty soldier, someone who can take a city, that seems like, oh, they have the most power. But it's whoever is slow to anger and whoever rules his spirit, keeps his self in check.
Yeah.
They are more than those mighty
powerful.
soldiers and warriors.
Yeah. And obviously, we've just talked about anger in multiple situations, but something, and I was going to say this before when we were talking, but then we moved on and I forgot to say it or it didn't fit in quite right. But for me, so the thing that I have struggled with is not so much speaking out of anger or whatever, but just kind of being harsh, which Rachel was talking about in regards to her, and being naggy. And and I remember when I was newly married, who knows how many years, and I don't know that we had kids yet, but I remember reading the verse that talks about a nagging wife is like dripping on a metal roof. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's
you can't live
terrible.
like that. Like constant dripping.
Oh, it like just doesn't stop. And so that is something that I started working on then, because I could definitely be naggy. Now, okay, wives, I'm pretty sure that most of us can be like, well, we become naggy because people we're talking to don't do it with us. That is valid. And that is a whole different podcast. But we can be naggy just in the way we talk and just in the way we approach things. And we definitely have the ability to curb that, whether they're listening to our instructions or our requests or not.
Well, and I love the verse. I love, quote, I'm going to use air quotes because I actually hate this verse.
She didn't use air quotes. I'll do it for her.
Air quotes. In Matthew, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak. I hate that verse.
Can't even imagine. That feels like that's going to take way too much time. I feel like
for me, for sure. I talk all the time. It's like, okay, so one thing I really struggle with is like absolutes. You never and you always. And I am 40 freaking years old and I have not gotten this under control. And I really think right now I need to, that's my challenge.
The time has come, Rachel. The time has come.
And I'm so proud of my children, and I applaud myself a little bit for how I've raised them, because they will say, is that fair to say never? Like when I'm talking to them, and I'm like, I am so proud of you because you are right. When I say it, I am not even thinking, it's like I'm just saying a careless word. I'm not actually meaning never, but I'm saying it. And so why would it not sound like I mean it? Yeah. And so I'm getting there where I'm like, you never, I'm like, I'm sorry. It feels like often, and I will like rewrite myself, but I'm still saying it. Like, it's still my default. Yeah. And that is very unfair, because who never does something, or always? I mean,
always. Yeah.
That's almost impossible. Yeah. And that's a very, very careless word. Those are two careless words that I use all the time. And
I started when I was transitioning from when I was in transition from using always and never to less careless words. I started saying regularly instead of always. Like, you regularly do this, because that is an accurate. That's true. Statement. Yeah, because I'm like, I need to be able to address this in the way that feels like always, but I know it's not always. And so,
but I mean, if it is like 9 out of 10 times, I try to use numbers. Like 90% of the time, it feels like this is what's happening or whatever. And
yes. And then, do you not have kids who say, how in the world do you have those percentages listed somewhere?
Never. But I make my kids use them too. I'm like, what percentage of the time do you feel like I listen to you, or I'm paying attention? Like, I do let them say them back to me. Yeah. No, I have not had children say that to me yet, which is kind of crazy.
I always think it in my own head that it's just about even myself. Like, that's just such a made up number. Like, where did I come up with? I have no statistics.
The data research. Now that the data research is in, you can positively identify.
I'm realizing it's actually 87%. So I'm sorry.
I like to round up. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, and our last point is the tone of our voice matters as much as the words. Oof, and we know this is true because think of talking to a dog. You can scold your dog with the best. You are such a bad dog. Look at you. And you're just like, oh, this person loves me. This person loves me.
And the opposite is that if you say to a dog, like in a harsh voice, but you're like, I love you so much and you're so cute and get your butt over here, I just want to cuddle you, they're going to like cower in the corner.
Exactly. And we all know this is true, but we don't always apply it to people. And I am super thankful that my kids will say to me, Mom, do you like the way you're saying that? Sounds like you're so angry.
Yesterday with a kid.
Well, in fact, one of my kids will be like, why are you so angry at me? I'm like, I'm not angry. And he's like, well, you sound angry. I'm like, well, now I know.
Although I am going to also defend being a mom, because this morning I was frustrated because I had told a child, I get up early. I get up 40 minutes before they get up so I can make sure to have breakfast ready for them. And then he sits in front of the fireplace because it's freezing and it's, you know, we had to turn the heat on this morning and I get it, but his breakfast, this hot breakfast sandwich is sitting there getting cold. I'd ask him 4 times and I finally was like, get over here. And he's like, you're screaming at me. Like, well, that is not true. I will scream at you.
And the only reason know the difference.
The reason I'm pointing this out is I think that it is also, I just know that I've had this kind of conversations with moms enough where they're like, it's so easy to assume we're either always in the wrong or we never pay attention to ourselves. It's kind of one or the other. And just because you might have sounded angry and maybe you should tone that down doesn't mean that when your kid says certain things that they're always right.
True. Yes, that's very true.
I would say maybe 30% of the time they're right.
Honestly, with this particular child, if he says you sound really angry, he's usually right. Like, I don't realize the tone.
And that's exactly.
That's where we have to know each of our kids. And well, and then this is something that I do that it really makes me mad at myself. But first I want to give the verse. So Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So when we speak softly and calmly, we keep things at peace, right?
Yes.
But when we bring in harshness, it makes everything worse. Yes. So what I hate that I do is because my children do not listen to me regularly. I walk into a room and assume often that they have not listened to me. So I'm like, I told you to do the dishwasher, and I open it and guess what? They did empty.
Yes.
Well, shoot. Or why did you not transfer the laundry? And they're like, I did. I'm like, what? Oh, my bad. And I hate when I do that. And I'm working really hard on it. And I always apologize to my kids. But like I walk in and I just have this like instant frustration and assumption. But the tone of my voice clearly indicates I believe the worst in them in that moment. Yeah. And it is, you know, their own fault that I have this history, but it is my own fault that I am handling it that way.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
Yeah. So the tone of our voice matters as much as the words we speak.
Yeah. Yesterday, that's just happened with my senior. We were getting ready to go visit a college for the day. And I mean, whatever. I don't even know what happened because I didn't feel anything in my heart that my tone was harsh, but he was like, you're getting mad at me. And I was like, I'm not mad at you. I'm not even feeling any, I'm just saying words. And he's like, well, your tone. And I was like, oh, you pulled out the tone word. And he doesn't say that very often. So I was like, well, I am sorry if my tone was harsh. That was definitely not my intention.
Yes.
Because we talk about tone a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You guys talk about it more in your house, and I need to be talking about it more in my house because it's my main issue. I need to be talking about it in my own bathroom in the mirror.
Yes. Start with yourself. Yeah. So if you guys are wondering, like, what is this even, what are you even talking about tone? So like, it is, for me, the way you say something to me matters so much more than what you actually say to me. And so like, if a child, like, and this has been since my kids were little, like I would have such a hard time if my kids were like, I want a popsicle. I'd be like, oh, okay,
absolutely not.
Let's say that again. And if they were like, I want a popsicle, I'd be like, okay, like, of course I'd like them to say please, but it's not even about the please and thank you. Cause I think the tone insinuates the please and thank you a lot. You know, the tone insinuates gratitude or appreciation and so my kids have grown up having to re-say things a lot. Would you like to try that again?
Mine too. Would you like to say that differently, please?
Yes.
Okay. So before we wrap this up, what do you think is our challenge? I obviously already have several challenges for
myself. I can't wait to hear how this goes for Rachel this week.
So do we have a different challenge or?
I just think it comes down to what we kind of always say is what pricked your heart when you were hearing this? Like what made you defensive or feel a little like, oof, like that's zero in on that, whatever that means. I mean, the way I talk to my kids, I don't struggle this with my husband near as much as I used to. I've gotten much, much better in how I talk to him. I'm not saying I'm never disrespectful or sassy because I am sassy, but
by nature. both are.
Yeah, just by nature. Yeah. Like, and so, but my
Get it from
kids,
our
that's
mother.
something we do. And she'd be real proud of that.
I know. Yes, they did. Or she's making this face.
Exactly.
Asking us while she's watching this.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, we love you. Anyways,
Yes,
so
we
yeah,
do.
I'm just always continuing paying attention to how I speak to my teenagers, and
Yes.
my adult kids. So yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I for myself.
Our ministry or organization highlight this week, because some of these are not ministries, some of them are just businesses, but they are Jesus honoring ones.
Yes.
It's called Little Sister Sewing, and on Instagram it is at Little Sister Sewing. And Nicole started Little Sister Sewing because it just was born from a desire to surround her family and friends with beautiful things made with precision, care, and love. She has a strong desire to bring the traditional skill of sewing back into the modern home and make it accessible for everyone. So she has like handbags, accessories, scrunchies, key fobs, but she also has like quilted art, stockings, blankets. And then she said, I do too. And she said, when Jesus came to earth, he valued working with his hands as a carpenter. And I think when we find a skill that the Lord has gifted us with, it is such a joy to explore it, hone it, and share it with others. My ultimate goal with Little Sister Sewing is to help others enjoy beautiful handmade goods. And her website is littlesistersewing.com. So
beautiful.
head on over, check out her stuff. Her stuff is really, really beautiful. And I'm like,
and if you, the value that goes into handmade, hand sewn things, because you said hand sewn, or does she use machines? Maybe both.
I think she uses machines. Yeah.
But either way, my mother-in-law sews quilts, and handmade, right? Not hand sewn, right? I got that wrong. But it is a gift to say the least, and it takes a lot of time and a lot. It is not a quick thing that you just pop out there. There's a lot of love behind it, so that's beautiful.
Exactly.
I love that.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know what stuck out to you, what you're working on. We love getting messages from you guys. So have a great week.
Bye, guys.
You might feel that your life is a mess, but don't feel bad. Ours is too, but we own a microphone and we have no shame. That's why we'll talk about how our life is a mess nonetheless. That's the name of our podcast.